Welcome to episode 11 of the Buckeye Bar Guys here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Big show tonight. We're getting closer and closer to the season starting. Today's night on the recording night is October 14th. So we're officially Troy Smith. That's right. 10 days away from the kickoff. Getting pretty excited.
Oh, yeah, I'm very excited. 10 days away from kickoff. So we've been waiting so long for Ohio State. Didn't think we were going to get a season. So this is just awesome that we're getting this close.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Every day that we get a little closer, it's just I'm getting a little bit more psyched up. And the coaches have been throwing in some pretty cool press conferences with us. So pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I'm at least, that's like you said, I'm really happy about that. It's good that they're doing that for all of us that we've been waiting so long for this season, at least that they're getting us all the position coaches, a couple of their players, just to kind of fill us in on what's going on in the season. And, so we all know kind of what to expect. I mean, they're not really giving us a lot of anything, which we'll talk about more about that here in a little bit. But they are giving us a little bit of insight into their position groups, what's been going on in practice. It really has just been kind of filling this void. I mean, this has been a long, like 30 days or whatever it's been since they announced that we were allowed to play. So it's definitely appreciated.
Yeah, definitely appreciated. So before we get going tonight, just wanted to remind everybody to, you're watching us on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications, like the videos, and give us put some comments in on the videos, any of that interaction that helps with the algorithms, helps us get seen by more eyeballs, and that goes across everything. So the more interaction we get across all the social media sites, the podcast networks, whether you listen to it on Apple or Spotify or Stitcher or whatever, Google Podcasts, we're on all of them. So the more interaction we get with the content, more eyeballs get seen by it, then more people get to see it, helps us grow. We have a lot of cool things I think planned coming up in the future, and the more growth we get, the more it helps us out on that end of it. And just if you are primarily a YouTube subscriber, go whatever podcast you have your choice, go follow us on that podcast too. That really doesn't hurt. Even if you only watch on YouTube, that still gives us another subscriber. Same thing with the podcast networks. Don't feel afraid to go subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that just, again, that's another number. And tell your friends if you like what you've heard so far, and you have friends and family that are big Buckeye fans, bring them on down. We'd love the company here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we want to interact and talk with everyone about Ohio State. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. We want to see what everyone's doing. Michael, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing good. We're getting, we're about to now get mid-October. It's crazy how time's flying. Glad this seems like I was afraid that this was going to drag on heading towards the season.
Yeah.
But it seems like everything's been moving pretty quick. We haven't had any crappy weather, but we've had some cool days and then some warmer days. So it's kind of in that Ohio fall where, you get a little bit of everything now.
It's warmer today than it was last week or 2 weeks ago. So, yeah. And you never know, especially this time of year, Ohio, just pretty much weather's a coin toss. Really anything before July and anything after second week of September is pretty much just whatever the weather wants to do. That's what it does. So, yeah, I mean, it's been nice the last couple of days, though. It's still warm enough to go out and mow your yard. So depending on who you are, sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. Sometimes you're ready to retire the lawnmower for the year. But, yeah. I like the weather. I want it to stay as warm as it can for as long as it can. But football weather is always nice, too. So,
yeah.
Big news for me today. Little man Jackson started crawling. So proud dad right here. Yeah. He's trying to stand already too, though.
Proud uncle too.
He's already using the crawls, trying to go into a stand though. So he's going to be running around, before we know it, going to be the next superstar for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah. No, I was telling our mom earlier, I was talking to her and I was saying, I'm like, because he's been starting to kind of sit up and try to stand a little bit more. He's trying to pull himself up. So I'm like, the dude's going to crawl for like a week and then he'll be running around the house. So
he's been doing like a fish out of water type move before today that he kind of like bounces on his belly and just kind of like flops around there. And I mean, he moves eventually. He was doing kind of like an army crawl and pulling himself with his arms, but today it was actually kind of everything was working together. So I'm very happy for him. He was going places. Now, I mean, now we got to keep a real eye on him when he's on the ground.
Yeah, and all the baby proofing begins.
Yeah. So this weekend though, we're going to try to enjoy that fall. You got to get your fall activities out of the way. This is your last weekend, guys. This is it. So I've never done a pumpkin patch or maze or whatever it is before, but I'm going this weekend. You got to be, the family guy until the Buckeyes kick off. So yeah, guys, this is the last chance. So get it out of the way now, because your wives, they're still going to want this to happen. So we don't got bye weeks this year. You need to get it done now. So yeah, this is your last weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You got to get that. Got to get all your little relationship fall activities out of the way.
Yes.
Or be me and still watch football over the weekends. So to get into it, before we get into it, we actually, even though everybody's going to know this by the time it drops, but we just got this news just a couple minutes before we went on. Nick Saban has tested positive for coronavirus, and so did the athletic director of Alabama. So
that's crazy.
He said no symptoms. So I mean, I love to give Alabama fans crap, and Nick Saban, I love to I mean, I respect the dude. I hope he stays healthy. When anybody who's more up in age, you always get a little bit more concerned about getting it. So
we make our jokes, but we want him to be healthy for sure.
I mean, he's definitely, hard to argue that he's not the, best college football coach ever.
Oh yeah. I mean, but have you seen pictures of when he was a coordinator for the Browns? I mean, the guy's aging in reverse. So I don't know. He might have already sold his soul to the devil anyway. So coronavirus might not even matter for him. But no, I mean, all jokes aside, I hope, speedy recovery for Nick. I hope the quarantine goes well. I'm assuming he has to miss 2 games now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their protocol.
Do they have a bye after Georgia? I really don't. I don't know their schedule that well. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how all that happens. I'm assuming that he has to miss 2 games, but he might only have to miss 1 game if. I know some places seem a little bit more lax. Once they test negative, they're fine to return to the. So I mean, some places say I know like some employers say you can return once you test negative, and you don't necessarily have to do the 14 days. So I don't know what
the SEC's protocol or Alabama's protocol is for that matter. Because like you were saying, some places are saying once you test negative, some places say once you're symptom free after 72 hours that you can return, that you don't even need that negative test. So I'm not sure. I hope the best for him, a speedy recovery. Does it count if Kirby Smart beats him this weekend? Does that go against that win-loss record against his ex-assistants?
I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. I'm not counting that. Kirby, that's a cheap one. You're not getting the W against Nick.
Yeah. All right. So quickly or to get now into what the plan show was. So we had a couple press conferences. So basically we're going to talk about Ryan Day, Justin Fields, and Corey Dennis. They had a press conference yesterday, so we're going to talk about that. Then Matt Barnes, the safeties coach, actually had a press conference today, the 14th. Our plan was to break down the back 7 of the defense. So we're going to kind of mix some of the stuff he said about the safeties with that. And then finally, we're going to kind of talk about just how the season ended, specifically the Clemson game last year, because I think it falls a lot in with the back 7, because some of the issues that I'm kind of worried about right now with the back 7 is kind of, what
that kind of caused that game. And we're not sure if that's fixed.
Yeah, where those holes were in that defense, So just to get all right. So let's start. Justin Fields started off the press conference. So we'll start with him. Basically, he's talked about how he's becoming a much more confident with dealing with, he's asking questions, and, last year was just kind of getting we saw how good he was last year. He was, but it was getting used to the offensive playbook. And, and Ryan Day actually said later on in the press conference, it's, last year is what do I do? Now it's why do I do it?
Right.
So, and that's what Justin started off at the press conference with. He's asking questions, why I'm doing this. Why do you need that? Why are we running this? And the reason why he said he's doing it, which, is intelligent on his part, because he's basically said, I want to be the coach on the football field. So if I know what, Coach Day's thinking and Coach Wilson's thinking, that just helps that play go run that much smoother, that we're that much more focused, that we're that much more on top of it. If I know, basically if you're just want to exploit this person or that person, or this is the concept and this is why we're running this concept and this is what we're looking for, and that's just going to help him read everything a lot faster.
Yes.
So
I mean, that's a very mature response to approach the season with. That, I'm Justin Fields. I'm already a Heisman level quarterback. That, I'm a Heisman finalist. I don't know how good a chance not playing all the games I have this year to win the Heisman, but I'm definitely going to be one of the top guys again. And then but I want to take that next step to get to that next level so my team can win a national title. So I could be a high draft pick that I can, dissect what's lining up against me, that when my coaches call this, well, this is why they're calling this. And automatically, I think I go through my progressions that much quicker than when I have that mindset that, okay, well, this is what coach is saying. So if this is what he's calling, this is what he's seeing. When we see this in practice, this is number one, this is A. But if that's not there right away, I go to B real quick. So I think just the maturity and understanding of, that's what he's seeing and saying, okay, well, what am I seeing? What they're seeing? I think that's a huge step, and that's awesome. So hopefully that wasn't too much rambling, but yeah.
No, definitely agree. So definitely showing the maturity that you would expect of now. I mean, he's a third-year player now, in college football. So, I mean,
even though that first year he was pretty much like Tim Tebow down in the South, but
yeah, they
Tebow's first year
didn't know favors, but at least he got all that freshman wear and tear off of him before he came to Ohio State. Yeah. And now he's really learning under. He called Ryan Day later in his part of it. Corey Dennis actually echoed this too. He's the best QB coach in America. So
I think Lincoln still has an argument. We can talk about that later on, but
yeah,
I mean, if the guy's not top two, I don't know who's in front of him. So that's especially with Joe Brady out of LSU this year. I don't see how he can't be the top, one or two quarterback coaches, quarterback developers in America.
Yeah. Then so during the kind of the off season, he got a lot more work in with Coach Day. So he said he basically Monday through Fridays, he did his workouts, and then, him and Coach Day, they would go over, film study, get together, do chalkboard stuff, going over concepts, all that, good stuff. And then, did some throwing drills. So it seemed like that they're actually becoming a lot more, the pandemic and the downtime that they had and the uncertainty of whether they were going to play has kind of maybe brought them a little closer together.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's made the unit gel a lot more. So it's been helpful.
Yeah. He did say he wants to be the best, QB in college football, best QB in America. And, he pretty much said, it's not taking away from anybody else, is that him aspiring to be the best, that's going to help him and his futures, whether, that's going to the NFL, this season, to try to play for a national title. He obviously has goals. He also talked about that, how he's becoming very goal oriented. He wrote all his goals down, and so he could see them and all that stuff. And so again, a lot of good stuff listening to Justin talk. He did say that he thinks that about his leg, his knee, that it feels good. He said the knee feels great. Part of that is just being healthy. Other part of it, he says, his change of diet. I know everybody's still some people are talking about that, but it's just, I mean, obviously he had a lot of time off, so knees heal, and so he that was kind of that definitely took a lot of little weapons out of the bullets out of the holster or whatever, or out of the the arrows out of the sling, whatever you want to say, that he
it slowed him down. I mean, that was a huge part of those games. It really affected his mobility. I mean, that's one of the things he does as a dual threat quarterback. He runs very well. He runs very fast. And, when you don't have that ability, especially in a big time game like that, and it wasn't even, I mean, we saw him scramble in that Clemson game. Like, he could make plays. It's just, I think ultimately it was the comfort trying to run with that brace on that he just was never comfortable just kind of, letting it go and just running, because he felt like it was slowing him down a lot. And I just don't feel like it was comfortable on him running. So it definitely affected that game quite a bit.
And like, kind of just going back into recent history. So when you think of knee injuries, you think of JT because, his, knee injury. But, the difference between Justin and JT is, Justin, I think Justin obviously relies a lot more on his speed. JT never really had that type of speed. JT was more, even though Justin's he's not weak by any standard. I mean,
Justin's a big guy. Like, Justin's strong. He's probably, he might be stronger than JT.
But, JT, I don't think he was.
I know what you're saying.
I think he was more comfortable with the knee brace. Yeah. His whole goal was that he would put his head down.
I'm not running to JT. I don't think JT ever had the mindset that I'm picking up 30 yards downfield right now. If something's not open right away, I'm going off. JT's mindset, I think it was always, run the offense you had, and then when you get yourself into those short yardage downs, try to stop me from getting 2 yards, which did anyone ever stop JT beyond the line of scrimmage? Like,
JT's philosophy was whether it was 2 yards or 10 yards, his whole goal is I'm getting the first down.
Right. Yeah. And not an inch more. Yeah. Unless it was against Minnesota his freshman year, the slowest 80-yard touchdown ever.
Yeah. But there's just so I think he was more comfortable, and I definitely, what you were saying, I don't think he was Justin was nowhere near as comfortable with it, and I part of it's the injury, and he doesn't want to get hurt more, and it's just, I think he was thinking a lot about that. So I mean, hopefully nothing else, he doesn't get another one this year. I mean, he's going to take hits, it is what it is. I mean, they're going to run him. I mean, I hope they don't run him a lot. I think they have the offense that they don't have to run him a lot, but the kid's going to take off the one he needs to make plays.
Absolutely, he will.
And then he basically kind of he's just and then he finished it off just about how he kind of days, he feels his NFL experience has just been, it's a great preparing factor for him, and kind of, they were talking about Dwayne there, that it's a great offense that I mean, Ryan Day is just a great quarterback mentor. He teaches them. He's a teacher, and
and he said, Day being from the NFL, that Justin's not actually, like, he's not out there, asking people or getting advice or criticism from NFL scouts or NFL guys, what can you do better to improve your draft stock? But he knows Ryan being an NFL guy, Ryan can coach him, and Ryan has, helped him on the thing that, not just what's going to make him successful this year, but the things that will make him successful in his future career. Because as we all know, the game gets a lot faster. There's a lot more you have to look for. And he was just kind of attributing Ryan with, being that guy that was able to give him that knowledge of, how to make a successful career out of this.
Yeah. So that was pretty much from Justin. I mean, he didn't really, again, he didn't give up a lot of stuff, anything that anybody could use, any chalkboard material or anything that anybody could say that he gave something away,
or any inside information about the team itself.
Yeah. He did say a couple things. So we'll use this to go into Corey. He did talk about a little bit about he was asked, I think, one or maybe two questions about the freshman quarterbacks, and just said, they're learning, they're going out there, trying to understand the offense. A lot's being thrown at them, but he said, they're both showing up, and they're both looking pretty good so far. So
I mean, I know coaches don't say, bad things about their players regardless, but we've heard in the past coaches say, guys aren't ready yet, that they're still young, they're still getting, used to the system. And we haven't really heard anything like that about either of these young quarterbacks.
No.
It's just pretty much that you do still hear that they're young, but I mean, from what everyone has said, it sounds like that they're both kind of, kicking butt in practice, and they're more ahead than I think what people expected them to be at this point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that maybe Miller would be a little bit farther behind just because of the injury last year.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like it does. I mean, if you kind of like read between some of the stuff from the lines from some of the media guys that have some of the inside sources, it seems like Stroud's a little farther ahead. But it doesn't seem like it's a huge gap at all. It seems like they would be, if they, would be fine with Miller,
I agree with that. Like you said, it sounds like Stroud would be option, one coming off the bench, but doesn't sound like Jack would be very far behind him, or, it would be a terrible thing if Jack had to be the guy that came off the bench if Stroud was hurt or something. So seems like they're very, very, very confident in both of these guys.
And then Corey, Coach Dennis did say that, they've both been grinding and definitely have been, doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, they're obviously freshmen. I'm sure they've made a lot of mistakes, but it seems like, he's definitely not unhappy with them. And, it seemed like he was pretty positive about how both are progressing so far.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. He did say, the pandemic has been really hard on quarterback recruiting because, they want to get these kids on campus, and, right now they can't. And they're not just going to, throw out, especially the quarterback position. You can't just necessarily throw out just offers without at least seeing these kids, at least somewhat, whether it's at a camp or whatever, do something. And so, I mean, that's been hard on him. He said, he went into talking about Justin, Justin, he said within, an hour of them finding out the schedule was texting him, talking about Nebraska, about, what Nebraska likes to run and stuff like that.
Justin's ready to go.
So I thought that was pretty cool. He didn't, somebody tried to press him on who the actual number 2 would be, and that's including Gunner. He was no comment on it, and basically said that he feels like they'd be comfortable with any of the 3, that if they had, somebody asked him if you have to suit up Saturday and Justin wasn't available, would you be ready to go? And he said, absolutely.
We'd be good to go.
So, I mean, I think that was pretty good that the, at least he's feeling pretty confident. I know a lot of it's coach speak, and again, you kind of have to read between the lines because, Coach Day is definitely a little bit more guarded than Meyer. I think Urban would have been like, no, it's a clown show back there.
Yeah.
But Urban has a different philosophy how he I think built kids up. His was more of a, psychological, they're not doing as good as they should be.
Yeah, he definitely, I mean, he was harder on the guys. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I just remember, like, when you say that, what sticks out to me was the press conference after that Michigan game in 2018. And it's like he wanted to give no love or credit to Dwayne Haskins. And he wanted those guys to keep wanting, to be better than what they were the day before.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a lot of what we're hearing from some of the coaches. It's different head coach now. So I think he's different philosophy, how he coaches his guys up, which is fine. I mean, obviously it's working. So, he's, Coach Day is much more guarded with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. He doesn't let the media know a lot about what's going on inside the program.
But, going back to just, on the Justin Fields thing, him texting, I mean, that got me really fired up when I heard that. I'm like, hell yeah, man.
Justin's ready. I mean, no one was happy how last year ended. Yeah. So he's ready to go.
He said that somebody asked him if having somebody like Justin is it, easier or is it more challenging for him? And, he said, having a veteran, it's an easier thing, but he basically said having a vet, it is challenging for him because he has to be as a coach, he has to be on top of his game because, Justin knows what he's doing.
Right.
And so, he has to be prepared because Justin's going to be asking questions and, everything. And, so he has to be prepared to have somebody that obviously knows what he's looking at, asking questions because he doesn't want to come off as looking like the idiot.
And, that might be good for him, though. That might be good for him that it keeps him that sharp.
Young coach.
I understand that could be intimidating on, Corey's on his behalf, but at least it kind of, keeps him sharp, that he has to always be on top of his game, that he has to be ready to answer Justin's questions. And that also helps him kind of think about things that he wouldn't normally think about, probably. So he could help, mentor the next group of people that he can help teach those next guys like Stroud and Miller.
Yeah. He said it was kind of like, you have to be prepared because it's kind of like, you having Tom Brady, in the room.
Right.
So obviously with a veteran quarterback, that's what happens.
And that's a hell of a compliment too.
Yeah, definitely. And then basically, this was more geared towards the younger quarterbacks and even Gunner that, he said basically the thing that's hurting them right now is just none of them have gotten a lot of live reps just because, so much with the pandemic and the scheduling issues now, it's just, and now it's full. They went literally from, not thinking they were playing to now, we have to be ready in 5 weeks. So it's been, let's get Justin rolling.
Yeah. And I am interested to see who is taking those, second team snaps though.
Do you think if they blow Nebraska, or if they're up comfortably against Nebraska, are they going to Gunner just because it's the safe thing right now, at least for a couple series, just to get them some work, or are they going right, put one of the kids in? I
honestly believe it's how it's looked in practice up to this point. So I don't think we know. I don't think anyone really knows except Ryan Day, because Ryan Day is going to get the most reps to the guy he believes would give him the best chance coming off the bench. Because you have no time this year to play around with, your hierarchy of, well, Justin's your guy, but Gunner's been here, the second longest or just as long as Justin. So he's going to go in next.
Yeah.
Then these guys, if these guys are ahead of Gunner, they're going to be the first ones because you can't mess around this season.
Yeah, I think that's my thought process. If one of them or both of them are ready to go, then they're getting in because it's all. Gunner's he'll get some snaps here and there. I think there's gonna be games on the schedule that allows Gunner to get some snaps because you might get a situation where somebody needs to come in for an extended period. You might feel more comfortable with. If there's an injury or something, maybe Gunner has to come in that situation just because he's the veteran.
Or it could be vice versa, though, in that situation where, and Jeremy Birmingham from Letterman Row said this first, that if Justin Fields, if his helmet pops off, Gunner Hoke might come in to take the one snap. Yeah. If Justin Fields, hopefully it never happens, but he gets hurt for an extended period of time, like we saw against, Michigan last year, that Chuganoff had to come in, then you might see one of those freshman guys that they feel like that they would be the ones that they want to take the team forward if Justin's not going to play for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's definitely a lot of different scenarios to think about. And I honestly, like I said, I don't think any of us have a good feel on that. Yeah. I think Ryan Day, I don't think Corey Dennis probably knows. I think Ryan Day only knows right now what he's seen, who is actually his number 2 quarterback.
Yeah. And then just as we get now into Coach Day's part of the press conference, Corey Dennis did say that, again, agreed to what Justin said earlier. Ryan Day is, he feels is, one of the best coaches in America, great quarterback mind.
Sure. That's it. And he's proven it every year that he's been at Ohio State. Look, after Tom Herman, JT Barrett was in no way an elite quarterback. I wouldn't call him one. I don't know. Maybe, I know he scored a lot of touchdowns. He won a lot of games, even with, in spite of Beck and Warner, but there was such a drop off. Like something was so wrong with him.
And JT kind of didn't get back to where I felt like he was, I mean, once he got past the Virginia Tech loss, I mean, he started progressing as that season went on.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people,
he was young. He needed that.
I think a lot of people kind of forget just because how the season ended and Cardell took us to the national title, just how good JT was up to that stretch,
right?
Leading into, up to his injury. I mean, his Michigan State, his second half against in the overtime against Penn State, his toughness, and then that, his game against Michigan State,
sure.
Ryan Day definitely brought him back to where we think if he had, like, say, if Ryan Day would have took over for Tom Herman, I mean,
well, if Ryan Day takes over for Tom Herman, we win the 2015 national title, and I don't even think it's even really that close. I mean,
and it doesn't matter who's the starting quarterback, that Cardell or JT,
right? Exactly, because Ryan Day would have got those guys. He would have been able to give those guys enough help that. Because we've seen what guys do in year one in the Ryan Day system. Just when they're learning Ryan Day's system, they just have so many freaking weapons around them that they can't fail. Like they can't. And I know you can say losses here and there, but Oklahoma, JT was a little scared. And I don't think Urban really, he didn't give Ryan Day, he wasn't letting go of the reins in that Oklahoma game because they weren't letting it fly against Oklahoma.
No.
But I mean, when you like the Iowa game, as we've talked about countless times on here, Iowa, that's just an anomaly of any game that's ever happened to Ohio State. Because when does Iowa ever score 55 points in a game? So, yeah, I mean, Ryan Day, he's shown the proof is in the pudding that when year one, guys are successful with them. So I absolutely believe if he was there instead of, Beck and Warren or the 2015, we would have won the national title. Despite all the distractions that team had, because they knew that they had 7 first rounders, whatever it was.
Yeah. Actually, and then so getting into Coach Day's part of the press conference, actually kind of start with that. He said he took it, he kind of as a personal challenge to him to kind of, upgrade the national view of what an Ohio State quarterback was. I mean, they've had a Heisman Trophy quarterback in there and stuff like that. And they've had good college level quarterbacks. I mean, you think back prior to Urban being there, they had Troy and Terrell, back to back, pretty much quarterbacks. I mean, those are good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And, they're both very good college quarterbacks. And, Troy won the Heisman. And then, Urban, I mean, he had some really good quarterbacks before, Braxton or before Ryan Day took over. So, but none of these guys were first round talent. I mean,
no.
I think, and part of me thinks that maybe just out of, because there's Oakland Raiders are out there, that if Cardell would have left after 2014, somebody would have took him in the first round.
I think Cardell should have, struck when it was hot.
Because I just think that, I mean, it's kind of that.
He had a lot of mystique about him. Like people thought that he could have been something special. Now, I don't know. He goes like the combine or anything. And
well, I think he had enough
pro days that they see that, he might not have the accuracy that they were looking for. There were a lot of things that could have worked against him, but I totally agree with you that if he would have left after 2014, there is always that one, ballsy GM or GM that the owner is way too involved telling the GM what he's doing with his draft that they go and they take those stretches.
Cardell probably would have been a Brown.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have been any worse than whoever they ended up having that year.
Yeah. Get back onto, lost my spot. So he basically said he took it as a personal challenge. He wants quarterbacks, he wants that viewpoint of people, they come to Ohio State. This is where good quarterback talent's at. And Dwayne was a first rounder. People can say what they want to say about what's going on right now for Dwayne, but Washington's doing Dwayne's no favors.
No. And Dwayne Haskins, how he performed in college, he was a first round quarterback.
Yeah. And Justin Fields is going to be a first rounder. I mean,
Justin Fields is going to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah. So, he's going to be a high first rounder.
It's going to happen.
So we have now back-to-back first round quarterbacks. I mean, even if something drastic would happen to Justin's still getting taken in the first round.
And I just honestly, I watched the kid last year in his learning year in the system, how he looked last year. if he's like just getting, sharper by the day with Ryan Day coaching him, I don't see how Justin's not going to be really good in the NFL right away.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. And, he definitely, you listen to him talk. He's smart.
He is so smart.
He's definitely, you can tell that Ryan Day is definitely rubbing off on him.
Well, Justin got an Ivy League scholarship offer.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Harvard.
Yeah, he did to one of them, but I do remember
Justin's a very, very bright young man.
And you can tell he definitely has, the football intelligence, and somebody like Ryan Day is not hurting him.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Then we got into, he talked about basically somebody asked him is, what are they working on really? And he said it's been more fundamentals. They're starting to get a little bit into Nebraska, but I mean, the timeline of the season's been so weird, and you don't really know what you're going to be seeing of Nebraska anyway. So
yeah.
You can watch some Nebraska film, but he said they're starting to get a little bit into Nebraska, but it's still, somebody asked him about, some of these early games, and there's been some bad defensive performances. I know Lane Kiffin is a good offensive minded coach, but he torched Alabama.
Ole Miss is not ready to run with Alabama yet.
And they torched Alabama's defense the other day. LSU, you can say what you want about LSU's offense prior to Joe Burrow and Joe Brady, but their defense has always been a lockdown defense for the most part, and they've been just out of whack. So, and that's kind of what Day was saying is they're really working on fundamentals, because you're seeing a lot of defensive errors right now.
Yeah, that's the LSU one. We'll put a pin in LSU. Maybe we'll come back to them later, because I got some opinions about what's going on over there.
All right, we'll hit that one at the end. And then he talked about so he knows Justin a lot better. We've kind of already talked about that. Justin kind of mentioned that, and now we're getting it from Ryan's side of it. And the fact that he knows him better, he just says he definitely seems like they can kind of see how each other is starting to think.
Yeah.
And, you always want that relationship with whether your coach is the offensive genius or your offensive coordinator is the offensive genius. You want your quarterback and whoever the offensive man on the coaching staff is, you kind of want them to start basically playing off each other. What are they know what each other's thoughts are when, they're attacking defenses. So you can definitely see that relationship starting to get there. He did say that, all the, everybody's, basically his three things is, don't turn the ball over, play tough, play smart. And you got to then keep focused to just that game, and, don't be selfish. And, those responses is just somebody asking him, how do you keep focus when a lot of people are expecting you to do, great things,
right?
National championship contender. And you really do got to take it one game at a time. And, this is a weird season.
Yeah. I guess in an aspect that helps them that they lost to Clemson was they're so hungry this year that they don't have that distraction like 15 did, that came back as a, super, super, super talented team. And it's just like they weren't, and we've talked about, Beck and Warner being a lot of the issues with the offense, but also just some of those guys were distracted, and we know that. So definitely, they're laser focused wanting to win the national title this year. So that helps them. Like you said, just keep the games clean. Just no turnovers, keep the mistakes to a minimum, and they should be fine. Now, with him saying that, they don't really get a lot of Nebraska prep, even though they've kind of mixed things in. He said, right now we're still practicing good versus good.
Yeah.
That we haven't really gone into Nebraska game plan yet. And I know during the season, you only get like a week for game plans on teams. Like you can't really, you focus on the team in front of you. You don't put in the Penn State playbook when you're playing Michigan State that week. Like it just doesn't make sense. So it's not that much difference, but usually for that first game, you have so long to prep for that first team that I don't know. You think it could be a little ugly for Ohio State game one?
It kind of made me a little nervous. Now, I think in a situation, Nebraska is going to be having the same situation.
Oh, absolutely.
But what's in Nebraska's favor is that, you know, they have a lot of just emotions because of just how the media is treating them. And, you know, how I mean, it's kind of obvious the Big Ten's a little ticked off with them that they have a lot of, you know, chips on their shoulders right now coming into this game. They're playing arguably the best team in the country, you know, especially when you listen to a couple of the Nebraska guys, you know, their media guys, it seems like that they agree with their statement.
Yeah, they do.
And, you know, I mean, I remember what Frost said after the blowout last year. He's like, you know, I mean, and I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but he's like, I don't know about any of these other teams, but that's the best team in the country.
Right.
And
that happened on their home field too. So, I mean, they're mad at the disrespect they've gotten this offseason, but they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder about how that game went against Ohio State last year.
And normally you don't open Ohio State. When was the last time they opened up against a legitimate Power 5 school? Virginia Tech.
What do you mean legitimate?
Somebody that could at least play with them that has,
because they opened up against Indiana a couple years ago.
All right. Yeah.
That was JK's freshman year.
Okay. So they did open up against, so that was it. That was the last team that, you know, arguably possibly could beat them if they weren't ready to play that game.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't know about that statement, but
well, I mean, if somebody gets hurt,
things could have went wrong. The Indiana could have beat them in that game. I mean, Indiana, Ohio State, if you remember, their defense didn't play the sharpest in that game.
Yeah,
they kept giving up back shoulder throws all over the place against Indiana. I mean, I thought that guy was the next Tom Brady that was Indiana's quarterback. I don't even remember his name now. And they still won easily. So
yeah, it's just, but
I get what you're saying.
You're normally playing, Florida Atlantic last year.
Right. Yeah. Or Bowling Green.
Yeah.
They opened up
the MAC
against
school,
16. Yeah.
And, we're supposed to play Bowling Green this year. Oregon was going to be the second team. You usually get to see.
Well, they opened up against Oregon State in 18. Yeah. That's a Power 5 school. I don't know if you would say legitimate Power 5.
They shouldn't be. That's like the Rutgers of the pack.
They get relegated. They're going, yeah. What's over there? Whatever's over there that's not Power 5. What's the Mountain West?
Yeah,
they're going Mountain West.
Boise can come up to play pack football. So he said that basically, he seemed pretty pleased right now with the freshmen receivers. He said they're all running great routes. He said the only thing that he wants to see them more in pads because obviously
you don't know
football speed, being fast and clean, running routes without pads and running with pads and being hit are two different things. So,
I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn so much, but backyard football, I was a legend. I could catch anything. I couldn't catch any football. If I'm wearing shoulder pads, I could never catch anything. So that was, I mean, that's a very low level compared to how these guys play. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying is you don't know until you have the pads on what these guys can do and how fast they are.
Yeah.
There are moves you can do without pads that you can't do when you have shoulder pads on.
Yeah, definitely.
Your arms don't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. And, you also have this brick right here that if you don't know how to actually catch a football with your hands, that thing will bounce.
You'll never catch a football wearing shoulder pads.
He said that somebody asked him about recruits coming in, and he said he hopes to start getting recruits on campus in January. It seems like they're a little nervous about a lot of that stuff because, I mean, it's a dead period right now. You can't get anybody on. So everybody's kind of playing the same, having the same issues with recruits because, nobody's can really impress anybody right now because it's just phone calls you're getting. There's no visiting. But if they do allow visiting before, the end of the season, and I know some recruits are trying to push for that to be overturned, the NCAA to allow them. I think some of the schools, it seems like they're a little nervous about possibly letting kids on the campus because, it's been such a controlled environment because of COVID that you don't want people from outside the bubble coming into it.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's not like it hurts for recruits because you have those guys that they want to meet the coaches. They want to be on campus, like we're dealing with one right now, Tristan Lee, that he wants to be able to see where he's going to go and be comfortable with it, meet his teammates, meet his coaches. So, that one, they're having a real hard time with that. But like you said, like you can't take the risk of letting an outside presence in.
Yeah. He said
unless you're going to COVID test the kid as soon as he gets there, which they might. Who knows?
That would have to be it. That they would have to fall under the same standards.
We got these instant ones.
Yeah. You got to take these rapids.
Yeah.
And that might be, if that ended up, that would have to be what they do, because
they would have to.
He said his biggest worry so far is the defensive tackle depth. I mean, they do have some injuries there, some young kids there. They lost. That's where really they lost a lot of players on the defensive, the defensive line, not counting Chase Young, which obviously is the biggest loss. But,
right. But you lost a lot of tackles.
You lost a lot of depth in the tackle room.
So with that being said, because I felt like Larry Johnson, it was such a great press conference last week. And not that we didn't really even talk about Teron Vincent and Haskell Garrett being gone much, just outside the fact that they're still out. But I felt like confident because they're not quite there yet. Does that make you a little less confident hearing Ryan Day say that maybe we're talking, 4 weeks out for both of them?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It's, especially when
maybe we're saying that you're not going to get either one before November, that you're definitely not going into Penn State with either one of those guys.
That makes me nervous. I would like to have one of the two back for Penn State.
I don't think we are, because I think Ryan Day, I don't know. I just kind of trying to read the body language on that one. He just, like he said, that's just his biggest worry. I just think that they're a little bit further behind than what I thought they were last week when I heard it. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see them probably. I don't know if you even risk playing those guys against Rutgers, but I guess you want them to get the snaps. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if they're not ready for Penn State, then I think you maybe give them a couple more weeks off.
But if they're healthy, you want them in the game. You want them to get game reps. So
yeah, if
they're healthy enough to play against Rutgers, why not? Because you want them to play, the full speed reps.
Going on to the other side of the ball, to the offensive line, he had where he's worried about defensive tackle thing. I couldn't have been more hopeful and impressed by what he said about the right tackle battle. So he said, Nicholas Petit-Frere and Paris Johnson are both rotating. Mainly ANPF is taking the first team reps. He said he had a great offseason. He's had a great preseason, and seems like he's doing really well, which is that. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks back when we were kind of talking about, if Paris Johnson should play or not, how much he should play. And I kind of said that works one of two ways. It's either, MPF is just completely not ready and, you have to kind of rush Paris Johnson in, or Paris Johnson's just that much better than him and MPF's still good. It's just, and Paris has beat him out. So this is kind of where I'm happy to hear.
I'm good with this. And that makes me, I don't think you lose Nicholas Petit-Frere this year anyways, because, 1 year starting, I just don't think he would be ready to make that jump to the NFL. So I think, this is the perfect situation. He's ahead of Paris right now. They're both playing at a high level. He plays a good season. Paris still gets his snaps though. And then next year you're ready for Paris to be your starting left tackle. MPF is still your right tackle.
Yeah.
Life is good. You got another dominant line. Then you're plugging in all those middle guys that, are sitting behind Myers and Davis right now, but they're going to get meaningful reps too. So
yeah,
that's awesome for the depth. I mean, that's what you like to hear. You like to hear that MPF's having a great year and that he's going to be your number one.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not like they said Paris is behind. It's not.
It seems like
it's not like they said Paris is behind. That he's a freshman. He hasn't gotten it down yet.
Yeah, you didn't even get the feel of what Ryan said about Paris. That he's being a freshman already. It seems like he's playing pretty well too.
I mean, he said that Nicholas is getting the main the most reps with the ones. But Paris is still going to play. Paris is going to get reps with ones too this year. So yeah, definitely like super confident in the right tackle spot.
Which then that's even makes me feel even more. I mean, this offense can be just scary.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you were already thinking that they might be the best offensive line in college football this year. And now it's like, God, if that right tackle spot is solidified, that's whoever they put in there is just a legitimate player.
I think it just moves down to, is the running back ready to do what JK did last year?
Yeah. And, and Ryan Day did touch on that stuff. Everybody's going to play. They're going to play with depth. I mean, outside of Justin, who is the staple, he's the starting quarterback.
Well, yeah. I mean, he needs the,
Justin. He said Sean Wade ain't going to play every play. And he said that, Master T ain't going to play every play. He's going to play with depth this year. And, and they have to. This is a weird year. You have the depth, and you got to get these kids in there and, rotate as much of these players as you can rotate.
Right.
So that was more or less everything that Coach Day has said. You have any final thoughts?
No. We went over everything.
Yeah. All right. So breakdown for the back seven. So we lose Malik Harrison, linebacker. Yeah. And where we take our biggest losses is in the secondary with 3 starters. So we lose Okudah, Damon Arnett, and Jordan Fuller. And, and when you listen to a lot of stuff today, the loss of Jordan Fuller, I think, you realize it's a lot bigger of a loss than probably a lot of people.
I was thinking about that just from what they said and, what we've watched over the last couple of years. I mean, obviously Jordan Fuller didn't have that top end talent that Von Bell and Malik Hooker did, or else he would have went early like they did.
Yeah.
However, out of a consistency standpoint, was Jordan Fuller, I mean, do you think he has been the most consistently good safety that we had? Was he the one that might have been kind of like the good at every little part of being a safety? Not like he couldn't play, center field like Hooker did.
Yeah.
I think Hooker might have been a better run stopper too, but Fuller was everywhere with tackles though. I mean, that might be a wrong assessment.
I think
Hooker might have been a flashier hitter, but Jordan Fuller was a great against the run.
Those guys were flashier, and when you say flashier, just Jordan Fuller is just he was
Mr. Consistent.
He just was a consistent safety. I mean, in 2018, their biggest issues are
when they lined him up out of position,
when they, the other teams exploiting, bringing him down. And, when they were running that inverted safety, last year, when he was the home run guy, and we'll kind of get a little bit in here in a minute when we talk about Clemson, is that, for the most part, it's just that back end, you knew you had 2 lockdown corners and you had the middle of the field just completely taken care of.
Yeah.
So going to back to the linebacker. So that's where we actually are getting a lot of players back. The problem is it doesn't seem like anybody's graduating. So now it's like,
I know.
and it's nothing against Tuff and, and Pete, but it's like, I've been wanting to see what Mitchell Pope and Gant can do. It's like, I still remember when they all came in together. Like,
right.
This guy's the best linebacker recruiting class they've had in years.
Right. Yeah, I know.
I've still never seen them start yet.
I get that. So the thing with linebackers, it's like you've had this core of guys that have been there for so long. These 7 guys that have been there for so long. It's like we know everything about the linebackers, but then it's like we know nothing about the linebackers because the second team have never played. So even though these guys have been there for 3 years, we don't know what they're all about because they haven't played. I mean, Justin Hilliard is still going in over those guys. He's still there. That's why you got these 4 guys that have just been there forever, and then 3 that are almost as long as them right after them. And it's like I said, we know everything and we know nothing about these guys.
It's funny when you talk about Hilliard. So I wrote down the linebackers and I didn't write his name down. I saw him at the last second of the roster. I'm like, oh crap, Justin Hilliard's still there.
6 years. Yeah, I don't. So it's hard to say because you're losing Malik Harrison. He was a great will. Pete Warner did very, very well at the Sam last year. But now he's moving over because he's your best linebacker. So you want him filling in where Malik Harrison's going. Assuming Baron Browning's probably going to be the first reps at the Sam now. So he was going to be more. That's more like what in coverage, right?
Yeah.
Will's more stopping the run. Sam's more in coverage, correct? Or I got those reversed.
You have one that's primarily more wide out
I think that's the Sam is because they would go more like over like a tight end or a slot, and the Will's almost like a second inside linebacker on this.
Yeah, because they said because Browning was the Will last year, correct?
Yeah, he was a middle linebacker last year.
He was the middle. But
him and Tough switched.
And they said, well, that's kind of like the Wills in the middle are pretty much just kind of an interchangeable.
Yeah, they are. They're both kind of, even though it's Will, it's not your typical weak side linebacker that you think of when you hear Will linebacker. It's actually it's a middle linebacker is what they are.
So looking at this linebackers, Al Washington's talked about this. They want to start doing more and, rotational things.
Right.
So are we going to get to see some of these? I mean, they're not kids anymore. These are veterans on this team because
they're draft eligible.
They can, and I'm ready to see them. I want to see if they can put some packages together that can really get them on the field together. And it's nothing against like guys like Tough. I mean, I love Tough. The kid, I mean, not try to get too punty, but he is tough. I mean,
yeah, no, I get it.
And I mean, he's that when you think of a middle linebacker, you think of a guy like him. But I mean, and when you're playing a team like Wisconsin, yeah, I love having Tough Borland in there because dude can come downhill and smack a fullback right upside his head. And but you're not playing Wisconsin, teams like that much.
Not at the end of the day.
So, I mean, I want to see what some of these other guys, I mean, they have a lot. I mean, they were some highly recruited kids to come in here, and I'm ready to see them. And it's not that I don't think it's because of talent why they've gotten the field. First of all, you had a guy that had and I'm what the coach's name, the bad one.
Oh, Bill Davis.
Bill Davis.
Yeah, Billy.
So
that's what they call him in the NFL. He's Billy.
Yeah, he.
Not only did he got to go up to the NFL, but then they had to like bring him down a peg and tell him that he's going by Billy now.
Yeah. So, and then, last year, Al Washington, that's for sure. He was just getting used to all these guys. So you can't really blame Al Washington maybe for not letting them. Cause I mean, that's, you've never been around all these guys before. So, I mean, a lot of times, people think when new coaches come in that, there's going to
be a huge shake.
They're going to look up from different eyes. Not necessarily. They're going to look at the old film. You're going to see who played a lot. Well, Tough, Pete Warner, Baron Brown, and those guys played.
Malik Harrison, of course.
Harrison played. So I'm going to go with what those guys did. I mean, that's what you knew because you could watch it. And plus he was on the opposite sideline with Michigan. So he, I want to see these kids play now.
I think we will. I do believe when they say that we're going to see different packages that they're going to play depth at linebacker because you have to. You have to give these kids a chance, see what they can do for you. You got to keep everyone fresh. But yeah, I think we're finally going to get that. I mean, they've recruited so many linebackers since Al Washington's been here, and he's gotten these guys, and they're kind of going with like a different type of linebacker over the next couple years. So, we might even see guys like Craig Young get in there a little bit because that kind of fits into the mold of what, Al Washington's been recruiting is those tall, long, athletic guys. But yeah, I think we are going to see Mitchell. I think we're going to see Pope. I think we're going to see Gant this year. I don't know how much, but we are going to see them. Now, what I want to ask you, and I know you just said like you love Tough, and I do too. I think Tough's a hell of a player. I think Pete Warner is a good player. Pete Warner is a hell of a player. Pete Warner is going to be, I think, a second or third round draft pick.
I think Pete unfairly gets thrown in with Tough because
it's like because
people,
they think they're the same guy, and they're not.
They're the slow white boys on the field,
right? And Pete Warner is a hell of a player. He makes a lot of plays, and Tough makes a lot of plays too. But
it's just Tough
athletically. Does he put you at a disadvantage against high-end offenses?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we've seen him, and I think 18 might be unfair because he was coming off that Achilles injury. Yeah. So he looked real slow in 18, but when you're talking about guys, with mobile quarterbacks or they got speed all around the perimeter, does he put you at a disadvantage against those teams when he's on the field?
Yeah, I think he kind of does.
But he's so smart. His awareness is there because
they masked it a little bit last year because, you had Browning who could play middle. And then when they played more athletic teams, Baron Browning was pretty much the middle linebacker.
Right. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into Clemson.
And, obviously Malik was always all over the field.
Yeah, Malik was great.
So that also kind of masked things because, I mean, Malik covered a lot of the field for, he could cover, for
Malik Harrison. I mean, if you guys don't remember how good he was, watch a highlight film. He was sideline to sideline for so long. Like, he was awesome.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I agree with it. It's just that I think, and he's great against certain offenses, and he's great. You would think Tough Borland is great against old school Big Ten football.
Yeah.
And like I said, you're not playing Wisconsin and Iowa every week.
Right.
And, Penn State's got athletes now. That's not Joe Paterno's Penn State teams. And, Michigan, a bad example that,
but
tough to find against Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, to his credit, though, you don't see him. Like, I know he can't catch those guys, but you also don't see him out of position against them either.
No. And I think when you put him into coverage, you get some issues there. When he can focus what's on front of him, the quarterback, the linebacker, if an athletic quarterback is coming up in the hole against him, I think, as long as his legs are healthy, he's got good first steps.
I don't think anyone's getting past him like that.
If you get him open field, maybe that's obviously different. Somebody can put a move on him, but if it's
I don't think he's getting juked out with a line around him.
He can meet somebody in the hole and
win.
He's got reaction. He's got that perfect. When you think of the prototypical linebacker, he's just got that perfect reaction that he finds the ball and he can hit the hole.
He is a great attacking middle linebacker.
Yeah.
He absolutely is. And he excels against your Iowas, your Wisconsins, the teams that you had listed earlier. His just, I don't know against, because we saw it against Penn State a couple years back when they were a man-to-man coverage, and it's him against Trace McSorley, and he didn't win any of those.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. So I want to see. So Mitchell would be pretty much.
I think Gant's taking a lot of reps in the middle too.
I don't know. I don't care. I just want to see him now. I want
to see how these guys do, especially because what the hell? I mean, if this isn't a year of eligibility, I don't think Tough would come back again next year. But who knows? I mean,
yeah.
We got to see these guys now.
Yeah, encourage them to be a coach. Be like, hey, Tom, you want to be a graduate assistant?
I mean, Tough Borland again, and this is not a shot against him. Tough Borland is not getting drafted.
No,
I don't see it personally.
I don't see it neither. I mean, he might later.
The NFL is a very fast league.
Yeah, and I think some of the issues that we just listed are going to be. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Pittsburgh could see something out of them,
and I could be wrong. I just personally, I don't see it, and I really I just hope, if he's coming back again, I just hope that there's some plan, some rotation that your Taraja Mitchells and Dallas Gants are getting reps as well.
Or if who knows, at this point you might lose those guys next year because are they going to?
I mean, can they get drafted if they've never played a down of football?
But they might leave. They might be.
Well, they could transfer.
I mean,
we know Ohio State usually has kids on path to graduate at 3 years.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that they're all going to be graduates. Most likely.
Most likely they will be. Yeah.
Do you see any? I mean, there's you got 7 guys here when you think of Hilliard too. I mean, is Eichenberg and Craig Young, are they going to really get any time though?
No, I see Craig Young.
He made a lot of plays last year on special teams.
I see him being a big time special teams contributor. I just, again, where there's too much, it's like there's so much depth there. Where do they get around these guys are getting meaningful snaps, but who knows? They could. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the secondary here in a minute. There's a lot more open possibilities for a lot of the young kids in the secondary. And then, Mitchell Milton, he just lost his red or black stripe the other day. I mean, you kind of, again, maybe special teams. Is he gonna,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He'll make an impact right away on special teams.
All right. So any final thoughts. I mean, you're only losing Harrison, but because of just there's a huge logjam now in this linebacking room, and I want to see Mitchell, Gant, and Pope.
I want to see those three for sure. I want to see Baron Browning step up to his potential.
Yeah.
I want to see him be,
and you see flashes,
the 5-star linebacker that he came in as. He's playing a position where he's speed now.
Yeah.
He's just covering guys in spaces. He's making plays in spaces. He's going to the sideline. So I think that's the best fit for him. That takes a little bit of that thinking out of it and just attack. But I want to see what he can do in his new role. I think Pete Warner is going to be fine as a will. I think Pete's just he's the standard of consistency as Ohio State linebacker. So when I think of Pete Warner, I think of, your AJ Hawks, Bobby Carpenters, Anthony Schlegels, just consistent players that they can make plays, against passes, but bread and butter, they can stop the run too. So Pete Warner, I think I have all confidence in him. But yeah, I want to see the rotation, and I want to see what Baron Browning does, because I think he can be a special athlete, and I think he could be a great player.
Yeah, I agreed with that. All right. Secondary.
Watch Justin Hilliard be the starter.
Well, so, all right, secondary. So Shaun Wade came back, opted back in after he opted out when the season got put back on. So he's going to be taking over as one of the outside corners. And then it's kind of wide open race now. So we had, we know Cam Brown and Seven are going to be kind of rotating, you assume, for the other spot. And obviously, either one can rotate with Shaun when Shaun comes out. As we said earlier, Ryan Day said, even him's not going to be playing every down.
Right. And he shouldn't.
So, you got those guys. You assume from what we heard earlier a couple weeks ago, Marcus Williams is kind of, if they play where a cornerback is playing the slot guy, the nickel, or even if the corner is playing the Shaun Wade position from last year, where it's that corner safety hybrid thing that they ran. That's kind of going to be Marcus Williams, and we assume. So Tyreek Johnson, he's kind of the next guy then after that. So, it seems like from a lot of people have said, he's starting to really show himself, but now it's time for him to take the next.
Well, yeah, he's a 5-star too. He's a top 20 recruit or something, or top 40 recruit. I don't remember how high he was, but he's way up there. So just like Baron Browning, it's time for him to take the next step and show what he can do. But I read some encouraging things about him though, that it really, he's starting to really play at a high level. So that's definitely something that, that's a confidence booster, that you feel good about that. Because if that guy, if he plays at the high level that you believe he can play at, he could be Shaun Wade from last year.
Yeah.
He could be that lockdown slot cornerback because he has a little bit of size. He's kind of like a hybrid guy between the two roles, safety and cornerback. So he could do what Shaun did last year. He could play outside, and you could just rotate all those guys. You could rotate all the outside guys and the inside cornerback. So I hope he can really, step up. I mean, I think they're in good shape regardless, but depth never hurts.
And the kind of interesting thing is, and this kind of takes me back to the Trussell era with Malcolm, that if they could get another legitimate corner, that now you can do different things with Shaun, because there could be times where Shaun could come and play more inside, because there was times they played Malcolm in on inside safeties, and
how did they use Shaun last
year? So you get a position where like in red zones and stuff like that, where it's the middle of the field is the easiest throws and stuff like that, but it's the logjam. Maybe if you can get somebody you can trust that can go up against fade routes, can you move Shaun? Then maybe to take away an easy slant pass touchdown.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that, the guy he can play the position. So it does nothing but helps the defense. I feel good about it though, because we had talked, even though you lost, a ton of, so much good in that secondary. You can't even there's really nothing you could say to even describe, what losing Okudah, Arnett, and Fuller is like.
Yeah.
But at least this time around, Seven Banks, he was a highly rated kid. He got a lot of playing time last year. Cam Brown got a lot of playing time. They both look good.
Yeah, they both
playing
time. And they did get playing.
And Marcus Williamson, he's been around forever and he's making plays.
Yeah. So and if Tyreek now, if he takes the next step, you actually could have legitimate depth that you could really rotate guys. And it's a raw depth because, even Seven and Cam, they've never been on, they haven't had a step up yet to this level.
Well, Sean Wade was hurt in a couple games at the end of the year and he got ejected from that Clemson game. So,
yeah. And then underneath Tyreek. So, I wrote down Ryan Watson, legend also, but it sounds like that, they might be a little banged up.
They're a little banged up right now, it sounds like. But
and a lot of people are talking about now he's only listed on the depth chart as a defensive back, but Cameron Martinez, he's a freshman, correct? Yeah. So, and he never played defense.
No, he was a quarterback in high school, I'm pretty sure.
But they talked a lot about him today. Matt Barnes talked a lot about him. So
yeah, no,
he must be impressing people.
Yeah, he's a hell of an athlete. So he's definitely, as long as he's catching on, he's going to be fine.
Yeah. Quickly to move through safeties. So basically Marcus Hooker and Josh Proctor they're the legitimate guys coming back.
One of them starting.
It sounds like if you're going to go to the one high safety, it's going to be Marcus Hooker. Matt Barnes described him as being, he's a good center fielder. He's a ball hawker, and basically it sounds like he's Malik all over again, the way he described him.
Yeah.
And I don't think he meant to describe him, but when he was given out, he said that he tracks the ball well, has freakish ball skills. I'll be like, he's Malik.
Right.
And somebody, I think it was Rabinowitz, asked him, he's like, well, it sounds like you described it sounds like his brother. Well, I never coached his brother. Like, well, that sounds like his brother.
Yeah. No, I know. Tim May made a joke like, why aren't you guys playing center field in the major leagues? How we're hearing about you and your brother Malik. So
yeah. And Proctor, it sounds like that he's going to be kind of more of the down in the box kind of guy. So it sounds like the way it seems like kind of the base defense that they're going to probably play, in my opinion, starting the year is probably Proctor's going to be more of what Sean was last year. Just it's going to be kind of I don't think they're necessarily too confident yet to put one of the young corners in that position. So
yeah.
But it seems like Proctor has been they said he's been doing well in man-to-man coverage, and if he can play that position, he can play that position.
Yeah, I got some concerns with his consistency in that role, and it sounds like some of the coaches do too. They just said, he has to stay on the field. He has to be more consistent of a player. And it's real weird though, because they're talking about like how rangy Marcus Hooker is, and he's like a center fielder. But isn't that all we heard about Josh Proctor last year was like he was the second coming of Malik Hooker? So,
yeah. And I remember everybody was just,
I know he makes great interceptions, but maybe just, I don't know.
Sounds like that's again the consistency that he's dead on or dead off on a lot of plays. So.
Yeah.
And then kind of the younger guys there. Basically it's Court Williams and Lathan Ransom. Yeah. Is there anybody else really?
For safety?
Yeah.
You got Bryson Shaw. They've said good things about him this year. He's not a freshman. And then
Hickman.
Ronnie Hickman. I don't know what is he going to be a safety?
He's listed on their depth chart as a safety.
So I know that guy, he's really fast, but yeah, safety, he might be a good, guy to where Proctor might be lining up like the Sean Wade position. Ronnie Hickman might be a good guy to roll into there as well.
Seems like there's a lot more depth in the corner side of the secondary than, the safety.
You
got two guys that have been there now for a few years, and then you then you got freshmen.
It's all about what's proven, what's not. Some of these freshmen, they don't know yet. They don't know. Legend Cavazos is a cornerback. Ryan Watts, he's a corner, but he's a huge corner.
Big guy.
He's a real big corner. I mean, he's like 6'3". So you don't know right now. Like Cam Martinez, like you said, the guy's never played defense before. So he could easily be a safety. I mean, he sounds like a rangy guy that's all over the field. Yeah. So I don't know. You don't really know where the depth is. Your more proven depth though is at cornerback.
Yeah.
I'm confident in all of it. I mean, I do have some worries about these guys because, like we said, Jordan Fuller. You saw Jordan Fuller in 19 when he was the guy stopping people. When he was the guy that would stop the home runs, and we saw in 18 when he wasn't that guy when they would move him down in the box and whoever was that deep safety get burned countless times. So there's things like that worry me about it because I saw issues with Josh Proctor that remind me of that stuff in that Clemson game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of our breakdown. So let's get into the Clemson.
All right. So, I mean,
unless you had anything else you want to add about the secondary, because I think we both have a couple concerns about maybe the back end of
I think today's breakdown leads into Clemson. So I'm good leaving it there. All right. Well, where do we start? Because we're really just focusing. I mean, the last 3 games of the year, Shaun Wade's hurt against Michigan, right?
Yeah.
So they gave up a lot of stuff in the middle of the field. A lot of passing was, that they hadn't given up prior to that. So it didn't look right. We had some concerns about that. Wisconsin, I feel like Wisconsin, they really had control of Wisconsin for the most part, but they did give up big runs. Like they gave up a huge run to 2 huge runs to Jonathan Taylor.
But the thing with the JT thing, I mean, and when I say JT, I mean Jonathan Taylor. I mean,
there's only one JT.
He eventually was going to have a breakout game against Ohio State. I mean, the dude was a great running back. I mean, you had to assume that one of these games he actually was going to show up against them.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ohio State's defense had shut him down. I mean, they shut him down in the Big Ten title game a couple years ago when he was supposed to be the big freshman running back.
JK outran him.
Actually,
JK outran him every time they played against each other. Even that last time JK outran him.
And then, the last year's game against Ohio Stadium in Columbus, I mean, Ohio State, they held him down and it's just, I actually thought he was going to have a good game against Ohio State. I didn't think we were going to have that first half that we had.
Yeah.
But I just thought he was due.
Right. So that kind of takes you into the Clemson game where you go up 16-0. Man, this game's hard to talk about. So I'm not trying to, tick anyone off or, say that Ohio State should have won that game, shouldn't have won that game. I will say I don't believe the refs took that game from Ohio State. Now, I believe there are 2 calls the refs made that if either one of those, which were both borderline calls, if either one of those went Ohio State's way, I believe Ohio State wins the game. And of course, if the Shaun Wade one goes Ohio State's way, I don't think it's a very close game. No. If the Jeffrey Okudah one goes Ohio State's way, there's still a lot of time left in that game, but you just took the momentum and you're putting Clemson's offense that really didn't do much. And I'm going to, put a little asterisk next to that. I'm going to explain this. Didn't do much. You're putting them right back on the field after they just had a big costly turnover. So when I say that they didn't do much on their offense, I would say if you took positive plays in that game, and I would say Ohio State, probably positive offensive plays, the ratio, Ohio State was like probably 65 of the offensive or positive offensive plays, 65%. Clemson probably had 35%, but Clemson's 35% hurt a lot more. They were huge touchdowns, and, Ohio State's didn't go for touchdowns and they kicked 3 field goals.
Yeah.
So that was, it was just rough. You had to score the touchdowns. You didn't score them. JK, he gets hurt. JK's running all over Clemson. He's still running well into the second half. He can't do as much because his ankle's not right. He drops, a touchdown pass. He actually drops 2 touchdown passes. He drops one that he's diving in the end zone, which is a hard catch for anybody to make. So, and JK doesn't have the longest of arms. He still probably should have caught the ball, but he did have to leave his feet for it. So that's kind of both on him and Justin on that play. He drops a screen that he's probably walking into the end zone because he has a lot of his linemen are in front.
And he didn't have that far to go.
No.
And they set that screen up perfectly.
Yeah, so it was hard plays like that. And really the breakdown, though, when it comes to what I was saying about, those offensive plays, mistakes too, because you had some costly penalties. Of course, Shaun Wade gets ejected from the game. Cam Brown has a roughing the punter that kept the drive alive. Clemson scores on that drive. So you have a lot of different things that, played against Ohio State. But this is what I'm talking about. Like the back seven is those plays. They were almost like lost on some of those plays that, there's only one when Shaun Wade gets kicked out of the game. That's the only time that Clemson actually like drives down the field in that game.
Yeah.
That's it. Their first drive, they do okay. They miss a field goal. After that, though, they do nothing on offense except for big plays. Except for that one when Shaun Wade gets kicked out of the game, then they drive down the field and Etienne has a touchdown that 20, Ohio State seems like they have 30 guys on the field and none of them can tackle the guy there. He's just zigging in and out of all of them, ends up in the end zone. Uh-huh. Besides that, though, Etienne has 2 long touchdown passes and freaking Trevor Lawrence. And I know the guy's an athlete, but he has a 70-yard touchdown run. So that game's hard to stomach, but a lot of the issues, of course, you needed to get touchdowns. You didn't get them, but
the Wade ejection kinds of change because I don't think Etienne has the long touchdown passes. I don't think Trevor Lawrence gets the long touchdown run if Shaun Wade's still playing.
Right, and I agree with that. If Shaun Wade's out there, that probably doesn't happen. Proctor's probably not out there for those plays that Trevor Lawrence juked Proctor out of his shoes. So, Baron Browning missed assignments on some of those. It was plays that hadn't happened really all year, that they happened in 18. We were so happy that they were fixed, and then they came back and bit Ohio State in the worst possible time.
And it basically made it seem like that the one move of moving Shaun Wade down into the slot is what fixed the whole defense. Yeah. And then him, now that he's on the outside, now I'm kind of a little nervous about.
I think they'll be fine replacing him there, because I think Shaun can do anything on that field. So I think he's going to be fine, and I think they're going to be fine replacing him. The one thing, though, that really, because I've rewatched it a couple times, it kind of stands out to me, and I know people said that, well, Clemson was so athletic, you had to do it. Do you think that doing the 2 safeties more in that game than what they had all year, was that a little bit too much of a freak out on Ohio State's part? Should they have played it more closely to what they were doing? And this is Shaun Wade gets kicked out of the game, so that changes a lot of your game plan in that second half.
Well, I think what they probably need to do is if you're going to 2 safeties, you have to have your most athletic linebackers on the field.
Yeah.
At that point. And so
we've talked about your most athletic linebacker doesn't quite have the awareness as the guy that's slower than him.
Yeah.
Tough isn't the one that completely missed the play. Baron Browning did.
Yeah.
And I don't like going after kids like this, but Tough Borland, but like we said, he might not give you the best shot. He dropped an interception early in that game.
I just think that they felt more confident having 2 safeties in there than necessarily having a third corner on the field. That I don't think that they were really settled on any of the corners to really do it.
So
especially because wasn't Arnett banged up some in that game too? So Cam Brown was playing some on the outside, wasn't he?
I think it's actually Okuda that goes out.
Okay, so
for a couple series.
Yes, so you didn't know how. Obviously Okuda ends up responding well after the injury.
Okuda's fine, yeah.
But you have. It's the one ejection, and the whole thing crumbles. So that's where I think I'm hoping that they have they do have a couple players that can step up because you're going to need different packages. If you have to play with two safeties, you have to play with two safeties. If you're going to play with one safety in a corner, you got to play with one safety in a corner.
I really hate the targeting penalty. I really do.
I know.
I understand it's the best of intentions, but I hate that kids get kicked out of games for playing. Making plays.
I'm sure there's gonna be a stupid targeting penalty this year, and we'll have time to really get.
I know. So, it was just those big plays killed Ohio State at the end of the day.
And at the end of the day, and I talked about this last week when we talked about the defensive line. That's another thing where Chase was being. All 5 offensive linemen were on him.
Yeah.
So the other guys had to make a play.
And Chase Young, and I have it somewhere, but just off the top of my head. So Trevor Lawrence early in the game throws a big completion over Josh Proctor that Chase Young's right in his face for that. Josh Proctor, I'm not picking on you, but he slipped, fell, didn't know where he was going, lost his man. So broke coverage. The guy was wide open. It was a catch on the sideline because Chase Young forced it to be a play to the sideline because he was right in Trevor's face. The play with Okudah, he was right there. And with Okudah gets the fumble touchdown that gets called back. Chase Young almost gets him on that play. Of course, the Shaun Wade targeting ejection. Chase Young's right there on that one. And I can't remember who gets the sack. It's Baron Browning. I think it's Baron Browning's sack that he gets that Chase. They actually move him on the inside and he beats the guard and he would get the sack that play if Baron Browning didn't get the sack. Yeah. So Chase Young had a hell of a game. And I know people, he did good sacks the last 3 games. Chase Young was all over the place. He almost got Trevor Lawrence so many times in that game. So please, anyone that has that opinion, just rewatch it. Look what he did. Look how many guys that it took to stop him from doing that. And the thing with the Okudah one would have been a strip sack too if Chase just would have been like half a second quick.
I just wish that some of the other defensive linemen showed up because that helps. You need the Rushman, you need LJ's defensive line. If they show up this year, that might mask some stuff.
Yeah,
that might at least help some of the youth in the back 7 in the secondary, the back 4. At least get more game experience until you really need them.
Right. So, I know I wanted to do kind of more of a breakdown, but I think we're kind of running out of time here. And it's hard to talk about. There was so much that went well for Ohio State, but you got up 16-0 and you kind of just, once Sean got kicked out of the game, just everything went. And
I just wish, something like that. You wish that, I know he's a big fixture on that defense, but your slot corner ends up destroying the whole back 7 of the defense. And that's all in 18. That's where their problems were in 18. It wasn't necessarily, I know Arnett got some penalties throughout the year. He wasn't the Arnett from last year. But it was never your outside guys were the problem.
No. And Justin Fields didn't, that last throw wasn't on him. Justin Fields had a really good game against Clemson.
Yeah.
He had an excellent game. That last throw, Chris Olave, he freaked out. He thought Fields was in trouble of getting sacked and was scrambling just because they couldn't see each other against the lines because Fields is in no way under any duress whatsoever on that play. So he has a clean pocket. He's throwing the ball, but Olave just kind of freaks out, slips when he tries to turn to keep the route alive, and Fields throws it. He throws a perfect ball. It would have been a touchdown to Olave had Chris not broken his route, but that's what happened. And it's okay because Ohio State's going to be fine this year. Hopefully they get a chance to play those guys again. And I know that's, we're not going to have an ending like that again with Olave and Fields.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, you want to throw out whatever your thoughts are real quick on LSU?
Oh yeah. So I'll be quick on this because this could go on forever. So everyone says LSU, they lost this, they lost that. They lost their coordinators. They lost their Heisman Trophy quarterback. They lost how many NFL draft picks. So of course, they're going to have a down year. This is what's going to happen. I say to them that 2016, Ohio State lost all these players from the 2015 draft. They lost a ton of guys. I don't know, top end, I would say they lost more top end talent than what LSU did last year. They didn't lose maybe the numbers, but they lost more top end guys than what LSU did. Ohio State was far from perfect in 2016. Penn State beats them. Clemson thrashes them at the end of the year. But LSU is losing to Mississippi State and they're losing to Missouri. I don't know who their equivalent is in the Big Ten in 2016. Ohio State didn't lose to those guys.
No.
So this is inexcusable. I like Coach Ed. I'm sure people want to play for him if they can understand what the hell he's saying when he's recruiting them, but he needs to really, he's got to get his team together, because it's kind of showing that he might only be a mediocre coach, what people thought about him before. And Joe Burrow and Joe Brady get pretty much all the credit for that national title run from last year.
Yeah.
So that's the quick version, because we don't have all night for me to, complain and dissect LSU for everybody.
Yeah. I think it was a good show.
Yeah.
I think we're going to plan. So we got, like I said, 10 days till kickoff. We're going to do another show this weekend. We had a couple things we wanted to get done before our, Nebraska breakdown show. So we still have a couple things we still want to talk a little bit about the assistant coaches. So we'll do a show this weekend and get that out to you. But next week, man, then
we got 1 week from Saturday.
We're literally, once the Saturday games are over, we're officially in game week. So it's almost here.
Wait. I know. I'm so happy. This is happening. Again, Kirby, it doesn't count if you beat Alabama without Saban on the sideline. Nick still holds his undefeated record against his ex.
But it does count if you lose to them without Nick there.
Well, you shouldn't. I mean, you're the real deal.
If Sark beats you,
I hope he does.
He's gonna go out for drinks afterward.
That was a bad night for Sark. Leave him alone.
All right, so we'll wrap it up there. Good night for everybody. Again, remember to give us a subscribe, follow us on the social media things. We'll have all of our links down in the show notes. And again, even if you listen to the podcast, come over to the YouTube side, subscribe to us over there. If you watch us, go over to the podcast side and subscribe to, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Get us as many of eyeballs on our feeds as possible, so we can keep on trying to pump out content for everybody.
Absolutely. So everybody, thank you for coming out tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
I'm Mike.
OH.
IO. Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar Guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.